In the bustling heart of the city, there exists an unassuming little home. Unassuming, that is, until you step inside. You see, behind those modest walls lies a 5-star establishment known only to a select few. The Grand Meowtel. And like any fine establishment, the Grand Meowtel has its own illustrious guests. Meet Yuki and Koko Suru. Distinguished, quirky, and utterly oblivious to their own limitations. They don't see the world quite like the rest of us, but they navigate it with far more charm. Yuki and Koko Suru live in a big city, in a house, mostly in my office, and all up in my business. And we're their humble staff, Jen and Chris. Or rather, we're responsible for keeping the water and electric bills paid to maintain their esteemed kingdom. This is Yuki. She's elegant, fearless, and completely blind. And if you think that slows her down, you would be adorably mistaken. Her coat is silky smooth, and she glides confidently across the floor with her tail held high. Inside, she's a tiny GPS, mapping the entire flat in her mind like a feline cartographer. She knows every corner, every piece of furniture, and every crumb in the carpet. And if you so much as think about food, she'll be standing in front of you like an overdressed cat in her James Bond tuxedo. And this is Koko Suru. Koko's got one eye with two-eye attitude. He's wide, curious, and blissfully unaware of his own heft. He's our unique little butterfly, grooming pillows with great ceremony, befriending vacuum cleaners, and rolling over for dogs to be pounced on. When he knocks something off a table, he usually goes right along with it, because for Koko, balance is more of a suggestion than a rule. But these two, in fact, are the most unlikely pair. They weren't born together, but they arrived at the same shelter within days of each other. Koko checked in first, severely dehydrated, barely 8 ounces, struggling with an eye infection, and fighting off an upper respiratory infection. He looked more like a cotton ball than a kitten. And to make matters worse, he wasn't urinating, which medically speaking is a pretty big red flag. Shortly after, Yuki arrived. She was just as tiny, just as malnourished, and also carrying an identical eye infection as well. Koko would end up losing one eye, and Yuki, despite every effort, would lose both. At first, everyone's concern centered on Yuki. Being completely blind felt like the biggest hurdle. But as time went on, Koko would later be diagnosed with severe rhinitis and would require the most care and support long term. At barely 2 months old, they went home with a foster family, separated in 2 different pens to recover. But one night, fate intervened. Someone was sad and started crying. Koko, with the agility of a one-eyed ninja, escaped his pen and jumped into Yuki's. The next morning, 2 kittens were found curled up together like a Disney ending. And from that moment on, Yuki and Koko Suru were bonded for life. Now this is the part where we come in. Years of someday conversations finally gave way to an epiphany. If 20 years is 20 years, better to start now. We found their listing, a blind little daredevil and a one-eyed demolition crew. We went to the shelter, and when they brought them to us, Yuki immediately dropped to the floor and started tracing the edges of the room like a feline Roomba. And Koko? He climbed Chris like a tree, kneaded his little paws into his jacket, and purred like we had already signed the adoption papers. Then, in a grand flourish, he politely parked his fuzzy little butt on Chris's knee and took a giant diarrhea shit. And in that extremely aromatic moment, we knew these were our cats. It was love at first biohazard. What began as a simple home evolved into a sprawling, purr-laden utopia. It turns out that no number of working eyes could stop Yuki or Koko. Wow, she did it! One cat tree led to two, then to tunnels, towers, and enough fuzzy balls to establish a new ecosystem under the couch.
Hey, I thought I just took all those out of there.
Daily operations at the Grand Meowtel revolve around two things: unending curiosity and constant energy. And as such, it's safe to say that they're no longer rescues. They're healthy little monsters. Like any luxury establishment, our guests have made their preferences clear. The Grand Meowtel's guest policy is simple. No furniture remains unslept on, no rug unbattled, and no toy left unattended. Sure, it's a bit unconventional to let your home be run by a pair of partially sighted, esteemed feline patrons, but when they're this charming, you can't help but comply. They've claimed their territory, and we wouldn't have it any other way. Now that we've come this far, it's time to introduce someone new. We have a no-eyed cat, a one-eyed cat, and now we're introducing a two-eyed cat. For symmetry. Meet Sora,